Hi there, and welcome to the Third Impact Anime Podcast, where we talk about anime, video games, and conventions, with a healthy amount of existential dread mixed in. You can find out more about our podcast by following us on Twitter at TI_anime, or just like us on Facebook to not see our posts, because that's just how it is now. Thanks again for stopping by, and enjoy the show! Hey guys, just real quick before we jump into this special episode, this episode is actually going to be an interview. Recently, a couple of us got to attend the annual convention Animazement in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's our big, home con thing that we all try and go to every year. Myself and Tori and Ryan and Tobias and Marissa and my brother came for one day. We all got to go, and a handful of us did panels. Tobias did around 8 or 9 hours, and I did 2 panels myself, and Marissa and Ryan both did 2 as well. So we got a whole lot of programming in there. And if any of you guys out there listening got a chance to attend one of our panels, we'd really appreciate to hear any of your thoughts that you have on them. We got some great feedback initially, right after our panels were over. Our audiences were super, and they were really fun and engaging, so we really, really appreciate everyone coming out for that, and it was a lot of fun. But as I said, this episode is a interview episode. I sit down with one of the guests from Animazement, Mr. JP Yates. He was kind enough to sit down with me for 45 minutes and let me talk to him about his life and his work related to international education in and outside of Japan. And we talk about some of the panels that he's done, some of his work history, working as an eikaiwa teacher, working as an international recruiter for Epcot Center, and numerous other universities throughout his career in education. And we talk about, him coming to Animazement for a number of years, because he's come as a guest for probably about the last 10 years, and we talk about just his job and all the interesting things that are found therein. And coming up with other Third Impact Anime related things, we do have another convention coming up at the end of this month, at the end of June. It is HamaCon in Huntsville, Alabama, and that will be held on the weekend of June 22nd through the 24th. And we're really excited to go down there and put on some awesome panels. We are a slated guest for that convention, which we really appreciate HamaCon reaching out and wanting us to be a part of it. So we're very, very excited to put on panels for them. We'll be unveiling a whole bunch of new panels down there as well, some that you guys hopefully will be very, very excited for. And if any of you Alabamians down there want to come say hi, we'd really appreciate it, and we'd love to talk to you. And one final quick thing, I did want to say this on the podcast real quick. Recently, this past weekend, actually the Sunday morning of Animazement, I got the call that my grandmother had had a very significant stroke, and she actually ended up passing away. She was 86 years old. She was a huge influence on my life. We were very, very close for the entirety of my life, and I really hate to lose her, but I do really appreciate all of the members of Third Impact Anime and all of my wonderful friends and family for being there for me during this really tough time. And Andrew, my brother, and I both really, really appreciate it. So just thank you, and I wanted to get that out there and say that. And that's a little bit of why I haven't been as active on social media and whatnot, just because I've kind of been, trying to stay away from it and try and focus more on getting myself recuperated from this and going through all of the, necessary preparations for the things and whatnot. So, anyway, I hope you guys really enjoy this episode. JP Yates was a really cool guy to talk to. He's a very funny dude, and I hope that you guys might learn something from this. And I'll include his social media in the end of the episode. I think he mentions it as well. So please enjoy. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Third Impact Anime Podcast. I'm the host, Austin, here with a very special guest. We've got Mr. JP Yates. How's it going, sir?
Excellent. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thank you for being on here. We really appreciate it. And where are we?
We are on the upper level of the Raleigh Convention Center at a tiny little intimate gathering called Animazement of 14,000 of our closest friends.
Absolutely. And sometimes their grandmothers.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
I love it when the older grandparents come in with them.
Yeah.
Because you can see the look of absolute bewilderment for about the first hour.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, they're taking pictures of everybody just like everybody else. I absolutely dig it.
Like it's not a grandparent situation, but my dad, like early on, whenever I first started going to cons, he would bring me because I couldn't drive.
Right.
And he would cosplay as Obi-Wan Kenobi because he's just got that look. We got him like an official like Jedi robe and a lightsaber, and he does it every now and again. But now
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We are here at Animazement, and we're going to sit down and just chat with you a little bit about what you do personally and professionally. So I guess just introduce yourself. Give us like the Spark Notes version of who is JP Yates and what do you do?
He's a bald idiot that keeps sneaking his way into these things.
Awesome.
No. Currently, my day job is I'm the, and this is the most pretentious title I've ever had. Mm-hmm. I completely fess up to that. I'm the Executive Director of International Recruitment at a tiny little university of 23,000 people called the University of Akron in Northeast Ohio. So I actually got in that because my old boss from when I lived in Tokyo became the president of the University of Akron and was silly enough to hire me again. So what I do in a typical day is I run a team that does all of the international admissions. We do the scholarships. We help out with the study abroad, with research partnerships, all that kind of thing. But yeah, it basically keeps me on the road a lot. I was very happy this year. I got to add a new country. So my 86th country I've been to was this spring in Mongolia, and
wow,
I thoroughly enjoyed that because when you think of Mongolia, you only think of one thing, and they've absolutely embraced it. You actually fly into the Genghis Khan International Airport. It's the best. So yeah, that's my day job. I'm on the road about 16 weeks a year, and then every year, Animazement is kind enough to let me keep coming back. So in my personal life, I'm very much a geek. I've embraced the geek culture from back when it was pretty much a reason to get hung from a stop sign by your underwear.
Yeah. Back before
in
nerds
the 80s,
were cool.
Exactly. Back when it was. I always joke that it was the civil rights era of geekdom, right? That we had to actually fight for your fandom. And before the internet, before we all were able to connect with each other, and I just love that it's been accepted so much as the years have gone on.
Yeah,
so.
It's like now we're living in a world where superheroes and sci-fi movies are like the biggest blockbuster hits every single year. So it's hard to say that nerd culture is not like mainstream now.
Absolutely,
it's kind of incredible when you think about it in like historical context of like. Shoving in lockers and stuff.
From, just when I went to go see Deadpool last week, in the theater they have the year-long Ghibli series.
Yes.
And I'm just like, that's at a Cinemark in Ohio.
Yeah.
15 years ago, I would have never dreamed they would have shown every Ghibli movie ever in Ohio at a mainstream theater.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that you can go to the theater in 2018 and see Grave of the Fireflies.
Exactly.
It's such an
which nobody should
thing.
see. I love Ghibli, but if you don't come away from that somewhat depressed and possibly wanting to harm yourself, there's something off with you. I love that movie, but it hurts me every time I watch it.
Rest in peace, Takahata.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I dedicate this episode to you, Takahata. All right, so you spoke a little bit about Animazement, but how long have you been personally coming to this convention?
I came the first year that it was in the convention center when they had expanded here into the convention center. I want to say it was either 2009 or 2009. It's probably 2009. Mm-hmm. But I totally, part of our recruitment strategy, I was with Temple University Japan campus. I was the head of international admissions at that point. So it was just a thing of where we wanted to have a table, wanted to give out brochures, wanted to recruit. And it came about because we were doing that at a lot of anime conventions, and unlike other ones, this is actually run by a high school teacher.
Wow.
Animazement's actually the head person, Aoyagi sensei. And she, of course, I don't want to make it sound like it's a one-woman show, but she is the busiest woman on the planet. She has an amazing team behind her as well. But she actually teaches high school Japanese. And I've been recruiting in her schools, visiting her classes, and she said, we'd really like you to come to this. And so for 2 years, I came and I did presentations specifically about Temple. And
I remember because my first Animazement was 2010, and I came to one of those.
There you go, and I didn't scar you for life, obviously.
Only a little. Scar me enough to remember your name.
There
all these
you go.
Years, so yeah.
So
I think I still have the pen that you.
Yeah. Oh, those are the best pens.
Yeah.
Mitsubishi Jetstream pens. They're the best pens on the planet. I still ask for them when I see the Temple people now, but. Yeah, so that was a couple of years, and then we ran out of budget at Temple to keep doing this because this is a very odd time of year to come to the U.S. to recruit. And the con was kind enough to keep flying me in because they like me. So I became a much more broad speaker, talked about moving to Japan, talked about study abroad, working, that kind of thing. And then one year, I think it was the fourth year, I started doing an hour of basically just comedy about what an idiot I was in Japan, all the dumb things I've done and continue to do because I spend a month there every year.
Do you have an example of one of your little bits that you have?
This is a mixed audience, right? So I have to keep it somewhat PG. Sure. So wasn't one of the... in Japan, obviously, there's a culture amongst a lot of people of imbibing in potent liquids, let's say.
Booze.
Yes. And I tried to keep up with somebody who was much better at it than me.
I see.
One year at Christmas, and at Shibuya Station, the busiest train station in the world, there's a giant pink Christmas tree every year, right at Christmas. And I have no recollection of this, but apparently I stopped 50 people. Strangers, not people with our group, just absolute strangers, and made them take pictures with me with the Christmas tree. And this is the part that could only happen in Japan. It was with their own phones.
Wow.
So there's 50 people that just, I'm sure to this day, go, look at this idiot. As they show on their phone the me just cheesily smiling into the camera. So that's one, but there's tons.
I certainly hope that at least some of them made that their like Facebook profile picture.
I hope so too.
For
That
a
would be
period of time.
fantastic. Yeah.
Or Line Messenger or whatever.
But yeah, a lot of it was when I was a younger guy and I was there teaching English, and I just didn't know anything. I decided to move to Japan about a month before I actually moved.
Wow.
Had never taken a lick of Japanese. Had never studied. My Japanese roommate convinced me to move, and he taught me the three things he thought I needed to know to survive, which were Watashi wa Amerikajin desu, I'm American. Watashi wa Dokushin desu, which is I am single. And Dai Joki Biru Kudasai, large beer please. So,
excellent.
And he wasn't far off. That worked for about 2 months.
Wow, that's awesome. So how did you go to Japan to work through a particular program?
I did, and again, this is back in the early days of the internet. Back when we still had to start the fire to get the dial-up modem going.
As you do.
Exactly. So I went through a company. There's eikaiwa is a $5 billion a year industry in Japan, which is English conversation schools. You're not really a teacher. You're just a safe person to speak English with.
Right.
Without fear of embarrassment or anything like that.
Isn't there like a level of dialect coaching in that as
there
well?
There is,
like
and idioms and that kind of thing. One of my favorite experiences was they gave me a group of engineers getting transferred to Tennessee from Nissan.
Wow.
Because I was from the South, and I got to teach them Southern. And you should have seen
doing?
You should have seen the happiness on their faces when we got to ain't. Because I said ain't, and they all got so excited, and I didn't understand it. I said, why are you guys so excited? And they said, oh, JP Sensei, this is the best word. And I said, why? And they said, there is no conjugation. I ain't, you ain't, we ain't, they ain't. It's all the same.
Hey, when you put it that way, it's pretty genius.
Exactly. So obviously, we're evolving the language as Southerners. I'm Southern myself. So that tickled me a lot. But so no, it's a $5 billion industry. And there's a bunch of private schools, very similar like Berlitz used to be in the U.S. And Berlitz actually runs some in Japan as well. But if I had known about it, I probably would have gone for a program run by the government called the JET program, the Japan Exchange Teaching Program.
That one's a very popular
It's very popular, and when you meet foreigners who have done very well, either in Japan or connected to Japan, chances are they're a JET alum. It's a fantastic program. Nothing wrong with it. Most of the eikaiwa companies do research. Basically, if you go alphabetically, you're good. Higher up in the alphabet, the better, as a general rule of thumb. But JET, if you can get into JET, that's the way to go.
So many of your jobs have been in recruitment. So exactly what are you recruiting students for? Like, are you doing that for like to go to these conversation schools, or exactly what does that look like?
Well, it's taken a few different turns. The majority of my career, it's just been international students. For my army of darkness to take over the world. No, it was to study. I knew it was one of those two.
I won't tell anybody.
So I worked at a medical school, and I would go recruit medical students. When I worked in Temple, I had a team, and we traveled the whole world looking for people to move to Tokyo and get their degree at Temple Japan campus, and preferably stay in Tokyo. There's a real need for skilled immigrants in Japan. They stopped having babies years ago.
Right.
The population pyramid's just upside down, and the government's doing their very best, but it's just a cultural thing. It's very hard to shift. And then since I've come back to the States, it's been the reverse of it. I've been going to all these other countries, convincing people to come to the States to study.
Do you do any of that to get prospective students to go out to universities and schools in rural Japan as well? Or is it mainly just the big cities?
Well, when I come here and speak, I talk about going everywhere.
Okay.
Now, obviously, 1 out of every 4 Japanese people lives in the Tokyo metro area.
Right.
So there's a lot of schools there. But I do talk about, don't pass up Sapporo. I love Sapporo. Don't pass up Aichi. Don't pass up Hiroshima. Because they're all interesting towns. Because why would everyone want to live in New York here?
Right.
Nothing wrong with the town, but it's not for everybody.
Right.
So when I speak here and I talk about studying in Japan and moving to Japan, I absolutely talk about options outside of Tokyo. But no, when I'm out recruiting, I'm specifically recruiting for the people paying me.
Right. Fair
so
enough.
right now, I talk about the wonders of Akron, Ohio.
Right.
Which actually is home of LeBron James. So.
Do you use that as a frequent pitch?
Absolutely, because he's actually said in a ton of interviews, he never went to college. He went to high school right across the street from our university. He went straight to the NBA. He said in a million interviews when he retires, he's going to get a world history degree at the University of Akron. So you could be in class with King James. I'm just putting that out there.
It's possible.
And even in other countries, that's a huge draw. When I go to China, people perk up like that, about that, like you wouldn't believe.
Wow. Yeah.
When I go to Sweden, they could not care less. So
Wow.
But it's all cultural. So.
Well, entertainment's a major export.
Absolutely.
So, we wouldn't have Animazement without,
Exactly.
Entertainment
And
is a cultural export.
I do go every year to a rural school up in it's a ski town, actually, in Japan called Kuruizawa. And the International School of Asia Kuruizawa, which is part of a network of schools all around the world that takes kind of disadvantaged kids and gives them a real prep boarding school experience, and then they tend to be the smartest kids on the planet, called the United World Colleges. But I go there and I do, of course I talk about my school, but then I also do kind of a boot camp about this is how you apply to U.S. schools. This is some tips and tricks, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. So to go back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier, you said that you've done some work similar to this for other conventions before?
Oh no! When I was working with other conventions, it was one of those where even sometimes I was paying to be at the conventions to have a table and be able to give out literature. Animazement is really unique in that they really embrace the cultural and educational legs as well. It's I love Seiyu, I love anime, I love and I totally geek out in the green room. They shouldn't let me in there, but they keep giving me the guest name tag, so yay.
So in some of the previous years, can you recall any of more unique guest interactions that you particularly
Absolutely,
remember?
and he's here again this year, Ueda-san. I have such a man crush on Ueda-san. He's the best.
He's the A1 Pictures.
Exactly. He's the Mobile Suit Gundam, the original, which is one of my favorite anime anyway. But he's just the coolest guy. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago. I know Rachel and June were here, so it was no later than 3 years ago, or no earlier than 3 years ago. But the Sunday night after the con, we just started playing Daifugo, which is a Japanese card game. And Rachel's going to hate me for Rachel and June fame. Is going to hate me for putting this out there, but she is super competitive.
Really?
Holy cow. She's the sweetest woman 99% of the time, but when we start playing the game, she gets a little cutthroat. So anyway, we just stayed playing up Daifugo till 4 a.m.
Wow.
With Ueda's on, and that's one of my absolute best memories, because he's just the coolest guy. And all of them are so genuine. I have to say that there's nobody that's too cool for the green room.
Yeah.
There's nobody that, even last night, Jason, this is his first anime, him and Elizabeth both, Elizabeth Maxwell. They sat there asking questions like you're asking me, like, oh, hey, what does this mean? What countries have you been to? Hey, I've been to Shanghai. Let's talk about Shanghai.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, oh, I'm too cool for you, which they absolutely are. But I like that they're faking it for me.
Right. Who's this nerd and works in academia?
Exactly. But that's what I love about Animazement, is that they really value all three legs of it. And,
yes.
It's worked. I mean, it keeps growing every year. From the first year I was here to this year, it's almost doubled. And it wasn't small the first year I came here.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, we'll talk about some of the panels that you do here. So can you give us like a list of the panels that you do and like a brief description about
I'll even
them?
try to remember all of them.
Sure. Do your best.
So there's the panels I do, and then because, I feel so grateful to them for letting me be here, I also MC quite a few of them as well. So I may mix them up. I apologize. But today, I'm at 12:15. I'm doing a panel on esports. My university is one of 8 Division I schools that treats esports like football at any school.
Which games do they play?
So we have varsity teams for Overwatch, Rocket League, League of Legends, and Hearthstone.
Nice.
So everybody's asking me about Fortnite. Fortnite's not going to be next year. Who knows about the year after that? We definitely have club teams at Fortnite. We have club teams for Melee. You should see the CRTs we have in that stadium. So I'm doing that today. I'm emceeing for our Rakugo comedian for for our sit-down comedy today. I love him. He's amazing. He speaks so many languages. He's done Rakugo in French and Spanish and English and Japanese.
Wow.
And he's just the funniest guy. And then we'll have the opening ceremonies, of course. Then tomorrow, I have an autograph session that I couldn't get out of. I tried so hard because it's Rachel and June and I sitting together, and everyone's going to think I'm just the coordinator for Rachel and June. And I'm going to completely foster that misconception.
I'm sure they would not mind.
Exactly. Then we do our Ask Me Anything, which went really, really well last year. That was actually that was a packed room, and it was one of the bigger rooms. We can't guarantee that doesn't go above PG-13. We try, but we don't know what questions people are going to ask. My favorite one last year was, will they sell a June body pillow?
I mean, they should.
That seems to be like it would make money. Then, I'm starting to mix up, but I do my comedy hour tomorrow about what an idiot I am in Japan. And then Sunday, I'll do my very serious how to move to Japan, the study abroad, the study, get your degree, how to work there. We'll talk a little bit about marriages, because just to be honest, if you don't have a Japanese girlfriend here or boyfriend or partner, and you move over there, you'll probably end up with one. I mean, there's a lot of intercultural marriages between Japan and here. So we talk a little bit about that. I was married to a Japanese woman for 15 years, so a little bit of experience with that. And then I'm also emceeing the 9/9 panel, where they're question and answer, our J-pop group that's going to be here this year on Sunday. And I'm also, I can't remember if it's tomorrow or Sunday, but I'm emceeing the Women in Japan panel. So I just get to sit there and again bask in the awesomeness that is a lot of our female contributors to the culture.
So in these panels where you like get audience questions about like living in Japan, working in Japan, all that stuff, like what are some of the most common questions that you wish people would quit asking you?
I never wish people would quit asking me questions, because then they won't invite me anymore. So my joke is always, there's no such thing as a stupid question, but there are ones that we'll laugh at you about. The most common ones are, do they have forks? I usually get that from some of our younger ones, and like not only do they have forks, they'll assume you can't use chopsticks. Obviously this is an anime convention, so people are very into that kind of the culture.
Yeah.
But there a lot of the really obvious questions about, oh, is there anime everywhere? I'm like, well, when you go to work or you go to school, is Captain America everywhere?
Yes.
Well, on people's shirts and things, but it's not like plastered on the walls.
Right.
So it's just the same kind of thing.
It's not like an anime wonderland or anything.
It's not so much a question, but it is something that I always say. We're very focused on this part of the culture.
Yes.
But just like here, not everybody's into the geek culture here.
Right.
So don't assume every time you meet someone from Japan that they're going to know every anime you're into.
Right.
When I first moved to Japan back right out of college, before the Marvel Cinematic Universe started, I think Spider-Man had come out, the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that was it. Because I was American, I was the expert on all Amerikomi, which is American comic books in Japanese, right? And fortunately for them, I did know a lot of it, but I had a guy corner me and want to talk to me about Sandman for 2 hours, and I had not gotten into Vertigo yet. I didn't know anything about Sandman.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, I'm very sorry, I don't know it. Oh, well, but you must know. Da, 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 da. And so just watch out for that in reverse. Hey, do you know blank is fine, but then don't just bulldoze your way through if they say no.
Right.
So.
Like somebody might, be able to talk to you about One Piece a whole lot, but maybe not necessarily this old obscure 80s anime that only you and 5 of your closest friends like.
And that's always what I'm into, is the old obscure 80s anime.
Yeah.
So.
I don't think Ninja Scroll is particularly popular in Japan.
Nope, not
that's
terribly.
Just something that just caught on here.
Exactly.
Because of time and place thing.
Exactly. But no, I welcome all questions, and I never get tired of it, because, even though I may have been talking about it for almost 20 years now, it may be somebody else's first time ever interacting with somebody who's been to Japan, or who's had experience with Japan. So no, I want to keep people excited about not just Japan, but just international. I want 10% of Americans own a passport, and that just saddens me. We've got to get above that.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sure it's interesting if, the things that you hear repeated over and over, you sort of get an idea of, what the general cultural thought processes are on certain things.
Sure.
I'm sure that's fascinating to hear about, like the forks thing, things like that. So
I will admit, I've been out with friends in Japan, and we'll have somebody new to the group, and I'll be using chopsticks, and they'll say, "Oh, you use chopsticks so well." You will hear that compliment so often. In other words, if you're not stabbing it like a spear and shoving it in your mouth, you use chopsticks so well.
Right,
so I always just come right back.
Stop stabbing food like a spear with my chopsticks.
So I just come right back, and I tell the Japanese person, I'm like, "Oh, you're using that drinking glass so well."
That's amazing.
And then that's a very funny kind of disarming way for them to realize, hey, we're being a little patronizing.
Right. So, what are some questions that you wish, I guess this might be a difficult question, things you wish people were more curious about?
I wish people were more curious about the whys of things, right? So Japan, I love Japan, and it's one of the most easily accessible to Americans specifically, countries at the surface level, but you really have to be very careful in the questions that you ask about the whys of things, because it's a very consensus-based country. Right? You'll never hear the word no, right? No one will ever tell you no. They'll go, let me think about it, or I don't know. That means no. Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's a saying in Japanese that says, the nail that sticks up gets hammered down.
Oh, I see.
So...
very much focused on the collective.
Exactly. So just it's not even the question, just the sensitivity of when you're asking for things, just oblique, maybe the side approach rather than our very American way of being very direct and very brash. Because there are topics that are sensitive in Japan, and they're too nice to tell you to stop asking that, or to ask it a different way. So just the sensitivity to that would be what I'd say. So, for example, there's the Hiroshima. Hiroshima is a sensitive subject. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. I've witnessed a lot of Americans just be very, very blunt with that and kind of cause those awkward silences.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the history of things, just be sensitive that it might not be the same perception that we have that they have of it.
Right.
So
just be mindful, I guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because we want to love each other. We want to all get along. So don't crap the bed.
Right. That's smart. Yeah. I guess do more listening than talking.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Exactly.
Learn to read the room, I suppose.
Exactly. And that's one of the hardest things for Americans in Japan is
Yeah.
because we're very used to hearing no from a
Yeah.
very early age. And when you don't hear no, you a lot of people will just kind of bull forward and go, oh, well, everything's fine.
Yeah.
And it's not. So, yeah, reading the room, that's actually a great way to put it.
Yep.
So,
All right, well, let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
You used to work for Disney.
I did work for Disney.
So tell us a little bit about that.
It was fantastic. I was a giant Disney freak all through middle school and high school, and that was the Alan Menken kind of heyday. That was Beauty and the Beast had just come out.
The beginning
Aladdin,
of the Renaissance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'd had that Oscar and Company. We're not going to talk about Oscar and Company. We'd had the Dark Ages since Jungle Book.
Yeah.
So
Not a Black Cauldron fan.
I'm personally a Black Cauldron fan, but that was just because I was hugely into Dungeons and Dragons
That's
as
fair.
well.
That's a very D&D
But none of my
movie.
friends were.
Yeah.
So, it was that. I started working for my local Disney store as soon as I turned 18 because that was their requirement. And then the college program recruiters came through campus and were looking for people, and of course I went to the session. And I actually became friends with the guy who recruited me later. And back then, they do it differently now. It's a whole internet process. But back then, it was just a 3x5 note card. Then you filled out your basic information. You had to pick your top 3 areas that you wanted to work in. And everybody put the same top 3. They would put attractions, because everybody wants, those are the coolest,
Of course,
right?
yeah.
Then they put merchandise, because they figure, hey, that's air-conditioned.
Yep.
And then they would put full-service wait staff, because then at least you got tips.
Yeah.
Right? So I put attractions because it's the coolest, and I put merchandise because I'd worked at the Disney stores, but then I put transportation. And apparently I'd been the only person that year that put transportation. And he asked me why, and I said, well, if I can't get the first 2, at least I want to do something cool like drive the monorail or be on the back of the parking lot tram making all the cheesy jokes.
Yeah, those guys are really underappreciated.
Exactly.
Sometimes they're hilarious.
So this was the fall of 1997. And so my recruiter said he wrote right then Kilimanjaro Safaris, and I was on the opening test team for Kilimanjaro Safaris.
I was about to say, Animal Kingdom just celebrated their 20th.
Absolutely, yeah, it was a big deal. There was actually a reunion that I was not able to attend, but yeah, I was there in February. We opened on Earth Day. We had 1 million celebrities come through. I drove. My favorite one was I drove Harrison Ford and Jimmy Buffett together.
Wow.
On their safari, and
that's
they
a
were
crowd.
hilarious. They were really appreciative of the baboons reproducing.
Aren't we all?
They just found that the funniest thing. I was trying to keep it together, but it was a great time. So I went from that, and then I went back to school for a little bit. I did an advanced entertainment internship where I had to learn stage management, a lot of puppeteering. I was Simba and Nala in the Lion King show.
Nice.
For Can You Feel the Love Tonight, which was, to this day, still my favorite Disney movie. Yay for Hamlet on the Savannah.
No doubt.
Absolutely. And then my boss from Safaris got promoted up to the international programs office. He said, hey, you want to come work with all these international kids at Epcot? And I said, absolutely. So I was actually there for the Millennium, and there were a ton of special events. Got to meet the Crown Princess of Sweden. I was very happy when she got married. She got over me.
That would have been complicated.
I'm telling you. But
she would have
again,
kept you so busy. You
exactly.
wouldn't have been able to come to Animazement,
when can you sneak off from these state dinners to go play PlayStation?
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, I had a great time through that. Was there for the Millennium Celebration. Stayed up for 72 hours. Worked 68 of them for the actual Millennium. For turning 2000.
Make sure the Y2K fallout didn't.
Exactly.
affect Epcot
That
too
was a
much.
concern. People joke about it now, but we were actually scared of that. So yeah, it was. I did quite a few things with that. While I was doing that, I got to do the Tapestry of Nations parade, which was all designed by Julie Taymor, who did Lion King on Broadway.
Wow.
And that was my college thesis, was on puppeteering. I was a theater major. And so yeah, I had a great time. And then shortly after I graduated, I was still working them for a little while, and then my Japanese friend convinced me to move to Japan. So
Wow.
that was I had a great time at Disney. I highly recommend everybody work there at least once. But just be aware that it narrows very quickly. There's a lot of entry-level people, a lot of first-level managers, and then it goes very skinny. It's more of an obelisk than a pyramid, let's put it that way.
Much like in Mexico in Epcot pyramid.
Well played. Well played.
Whatever.
But the luckiest part of that, and I was just in contact with the guy who got promoted from Animal Kingdom and then hired me into that. He's actually the head of professional internship recruiting now.
Okay.
And then my other boss, who's one of my great mentors, I just had dinner with him in Orange County last month. But that's the thing, is the connections you make at Disney. That's and just learning that model, that business model is amazing. It's customer service, jokes. I do have to say that I am glad I can be way more inappropriate now. You have to keep everything very clean. But I used to tell the cheesiest jokes. The kids would come up and I'd go, whoa, stop. What's the matter? Oh, you got a little poo on your shirt.
Hey. Oh, bother.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, bother. So yeah, it was, and I did overtime as everything. I was in entertainment, so I was friends with Tigger. I was friends with.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
I was
That's
friends
cool.
with Country Bears. They were my best friends. I really enjoyed the Country Bears.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then, got to do a ton of things. Phantom Menace had just come out. Episode 2 was coming out. I got to do tons of overtime in the Star Wars store and got to play with all the lightsabers and everything.
Cool.
So it was very, very cool. Had a great time.
Do you regret not being able to be friends with Ariel?
I think that would have scarred many children for life.
Probably.
Is
that another Disney pun? Hey.
No. Scar.
Hey.
No, it wasn't, but well
Be
played.
prepared.
They just keep coming.
Sorry.
That's all right. I was friends with people who were friends with Ariel.
Oh, nice.
And they quite enjoyed it.
That's wonderful.
There you go.
Those princesses, whatever they get paid, they don't get paid enough.
And I still point with 2 fingers. It's been been almost 20 years,
Yeah.
and I still point with 2 fingers.
And my girlfriend's got me doing that.
Yeah.
And I've never worked there, so yeah. So I guess in closing, let's just bring it back around to what we're all here for, anime and manga.
Absolutely.
So when did you first hear the word anime, and was that after you heard the word Japanimation?
I never heard Japanimation. I didn't hear Japanimation for years and years afterwards.
Okay.
There was a guy named Chris Adams who was my hero in high school and the nicest guy. He was a senior. Actually, when I was in 8th grade, it was a weird thing where I was doing some stuff at the high school, and the families got to be great friends and everything. But I mean, he introduced me to my favorite band, and he introduced me to Akira.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
he had and I'm sorry to the publishing house, but he had like a 3rd generation VHS copy of Akira.
That was just the way back
Exactly,
then.
because there was no place in Goose Creek, South Carolina to go buy Akira at that time. Now that's part of Charleston. We used to be the Sticks. So there's just no place to buy it. So yeah, Chris Adams introduced me to Akira and to Cowboy Bebop.
Yes.
And to Ghost in the Shell, of course. So those were my first ones. So it was very much that kind of techno, dystopian anime, and I just fell in love with it. And of course, as a little kid, I didn't realize I was watching anime, but I'd been watching Robotech and Voltron and these shows that were very mecha anime. So to this day, those are still my favorite, the mecha and dystopian anime. But so that would have been 1990 or 1991 that I first got involved with it.
Cool.
And just absolutely loved it. Macross Plus is still my favorite soundtrack.
Oh my gosh, so good.
I absolutely. My ringtone right now is actually voices from Macross Plus.
Is it like the Sharon Apple thing?
No, it's the original. It's the Japanese.
Oh, the song voices.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just that's when I got into it.
Yeah.
Was that, and now we talked about Graveyard of the Fireflies and how that is actually a war crime.
Yeah.
Crime against humanity, not a war crime. It's a great movie. I don't want to keep dogging on it, but it's so hard to watch.
Yeah.
But all other Ghibli, I didn't get into that until I moved to Japan in 2001, and I saw Totoro in Japan again on DVD. But Porco Rosso. My dream is to one year come to this and do cosplay as Porco Rosso.
Great idea. That movie just came out on the Ghibli Fest.
Yep, it
thing.
did. And I was going to be here I was on my way here, I should say, instead of being able to watch it in Ohio.
Darn.
That's my favorite. Porco Rosso. I just identify with him a lot.
Yeah, he's such a great character.
Absolutely.
I know Miyazaki has said many different things about that movie in the past, like how initially he was a big fan of it, and then he looks back on it, he's just like, oh, I shouldn't have made that movie. But but he has said that he feels personally close to the Pigman character,
Yep.
so maybe that's why he's like, oh no, I revealed too much of myself.
I'm channeling it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then again, bring it back to Animazement, everybody's here. We have Luna, we have original Luna here,
Yes.
Keiko Han, who is the nicest woman on the planet. I know I keep saying everybody's nice, but
That's
they
good.
really
That's
are.
good.
She's so sweet. I was holding the elevator for her this morning, and it was like I had given her a kidney.
Wow.
She's so sweet, and she is 2 feet tall. But absolutely love her to death. When the voice of Sasuke was here a few years ago, she was the nicest woman. But yeah, the American Seiyu, the Japanese Seiyu, the animators, the directors, our samurai troupe, the Jackaballs are the funniest guys.
What's Watanabe like?
I knew you were going to ask that.
I gotta know. He's like one of my favorite creators.
He's been pretty chill so far. I actually haven't talked to him that much. He seemed to be having a good time at dinner last night.
That's good.
But
it was his birthday yesterday.
It was, and we gave him a cake and we sang to him.
Excellent.
And Ueda-san wanted us to sing again because he didn't get it too well on his cell phone. So, but yeah, no, they're all so accessible. I mean, I don't know that our American celebrities of that same level would be that same way. I don't know that they wouldn't, but my expectation is probably that the Japanese celebrities are, and our American Seiyu and everybody that are here now, are probably the most accessible. And they're all so excited to be here.
There's definitely this sort of convention cultural difference between, like, if you go to a Comic-Con in the U.S. or go to, like, an anime convention. Because usually if you go to an anime convention, like, you pay that upfront fee, you get your badge, and then everything else is generally free unless there's a super special event.
Absolutely.
But, like, if you go to Comic-Cons, like, you have to pay for the autograph, you have to pay for the picture. If you want to meet Bruce Campbell, you gotta, like, wait in line for 3 hours and then pay $50. So it's accessibility with a price, obviously, but at anime cons, like, that doesn't really exist. Like, you can come here and you can meet, most of the time you can come here and meet, like, these Japanese creators that are from, I don't know, half a world away at, like, no additional cost. It's really nice and intimate and cool.
I do have to say, as I completely threw American celebrities under the bus, I do have to take it back because that reminded me, a couple of years ago I went to a doomed Comic-Con as a guest. Not a guest like I am here, I paid my admission fee and went.
A doomed Comic-Con?
A doomed Comic-Con. It was a one-time only, it turned out.
Oh, I see.
It was not run well, I think.
Oh, okay.
But it worked out for me because I did the VIP package. So everything was
nice.
included with my autographs and whatnot, and very few people showed up, so I actually got to hang out with the celebrities way more than I should have. And so I want to give absolute credit to the two that I hung out with the whole weekend. Neither of which are Americans, that might be it. But Deechin Lockman, who was in Dollhouse and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., she was the Inhuman leader in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she was Roulette and Supergirl and a bunch of other things. Absolutely the nicest woman, just very accessible. But Tomo Penniket from Dollhouse and Battlestar Galactica, he was Hilo in Battlestar Galactica, just sat there. I mean, he's given me suggestions on books to read based off of something I said, and just chatting forever. So those are the two where I completely, it was worth paying that money. But you're absolutely right. At Animazement and anime conventions in general, it does seem to be much more of a one price, it's the whole experience, as opposed to kind of nickel and diming you once you get in. And it's just a difference in business model, and a lot of that is how they book the guests. When they book the guests at Comic-Cons, a lot of it is, okay, we'll guarantee you this much if you don't make this much in autographs, if you don't make this much in merch, or that kind of thing. Whereas the anime conventions, it just tends to be the convention itself will cover those costs kind of up front.
Right. And Animazement in and of itself is very unique because there are very few non-profit anime conventions out there.
Correct. So, and It absolutely is. Everything, every overage they make just gets reinvested into the next year.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool.
And the whole point of this is to get people interested in Japan.
Yeah.
That it really is about cultural exchange between Japan and America.
Yeah.
So, which I love, and as long as they're silly enough to keep inviting me back, I will happily keep coming back. If that's in my rascal scooter, great. So,
it'd be like Masao Maruyama.
There you go.
He's here, yeah.
Oh, I would absolutely deck it out like a Mario Kart. I would.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah. Be great. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and having a great chat. And if people want to, do you have a social media presence?
I do. I have a social media presence. I was the last person on Twitter.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. I just started that 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
So you can find me on Facebook under JP Yates. It's me running with a giant pair of scissors.
Okay. I think I've seen that. Yeah. It's a cool pic.
Thank you. Yeah. And then on Twitter, it's J_P Yates. Somebody had claimed it before me because, again, I was the last person on Twitter.
They might sell it back to you for like $3,000.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, I work in higher ed, so that's not an option. So those are the two best places to follow me. And I post things about Animazement, of course, but I also post things from the travels. As I go to these 86 countries I've been to so far. If you're interested about,
I assume a lot of food posts.
There is a lot of food, but one of my favorite ones is on the Facebook page, but not yet. I wasn't on Twitter yet. I was in the Seoul airport in Incheon, Korea, and out of nowhere, just in the ticketing area, there were like 20 cops that just started doing a choreographed dance. They had like a boombox, like an old school boombox, and playing this very K-pop song, and just started doing this very intricate choreographed dance, and then just stopped and walked away. And I'm like, what just happened? So there's things like that happen. So yeah, there will be surprising things on there as well. But yeah, there's a lot of food. There's a lot of sights.
Would they call that a magical moment in Disney language?
Exactly. It's just completely unexpected.
Yeah.
You'll see when a hotel thinks I'm not showing up, so the last room they give me is the presidential suite. So you can see what the presidential suite in Tianjin, China looks like.
Wow.
They had a piano, and all I know how to do is that knuckle thing with the rum-pum-pum, rum-pum-pum, and I was doing that for 2 hours.
That's why they gave it to you.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't care if they hear it or not.
That's amazing.
Excellent.
Well, again, thank you so much.
Excellent.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Austin. I appreciate it.
You listeners out there, you know where to find us, but if you want to listen to more Third Impact things or figure out the stuff that we're doing in Animazement, but this episode will not be up until probably weeks from now because that's just how I edit. I'm not that fast. But you can just follow us on Twitter, do all that normal stuff. But thanks again, sir. Appreciate it. Have a great time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for listening to yet another episode of the Third Impact Anime Podcast, and we just want to thank Mr. JP Yates yet again for coming on the show. He was a great guest to talk to, had a lot of awesome things to say, as you heard, and I hope you guys enjoyed hearing what he had to say. So thank you very much for listening, and wherever it is that you guys are listening to this episode, whether it be on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play or whatever it is that you're using, please drop us a rating and a review. It really helps out for our show's visibility and to get more listeners, which is always a good thing. So we really appreciate it and hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will talk to you in the next one. Have a good night.